Are we doing this? Really? Wait for it. Are we doing this? Wait for it. Pow! What the fuck?
WTF.
And it's also, what the fuck? What's wrong with me? It's time for WTF. What the fuck?
With Marc Maron.
All right, let's do this. What the fuckers? What the fuck buddies? What the fucking ears? What the fuck nicks? What the fuck Mullins? What the fuckers? Did I say that already? Oh, man, I know there's a bigger list. I just can't do it right now. I can't do it. I'm in New York City. This is Marc Maron. This is WTF. Finally, the Chris Hardwick episode is up today. I know a lot of you were a little mad that I didn't put it up, but I said I was going to put it up. But I'm putting it up because Hardwick's TV special is on BBC America this Saturday, September 24th at 10 p.m. Eastern. That's right, the Nerdist TV special. So that's why I had Chris on today. See, I'm not such a bad guy. I am in New York, though, and I am about to lose my mind. Can I say that? Oh, if you live in New York, I wanted to do this, too, because Eddie Pepitone asked me to tell you that he will be at Gotham Comedy Club this Sunday, September 25th, with special guest Patton Oswalt. That's GothamComedyClub.com. Go do that. Eddie asked me to tell you that. I'm sure he's going to do fine. But we love Eddie. So if you're in New York, go see Eddie. Before I forget, I'm in Louisville, Kentucky tonight at the Improv. Come see me. Please, it'll be fun. Me and Ryan Singer. Louisville. Improv. Tonight. September 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and 25th. My birthday's next week. September 27th. All right, enough. Let's move on. I am in New York. Did I mention that? I'm in New York. I'm tired. I'm covered with sweat. I feel slightly kind of battle fatigued just from being on the subway train. I learned a few things this trip. Bad haggler. I'm a bad haggler. I'm staying right down here on Canal Street, right where all the knockoffs are and the cheap things. And I go in to buy a lighter because I want to smoke a cigar. I say, "You got lighters?" The guy's like, "Yes." And he walks me over and he shows me a lighter, not even a name brand lighter. And I go, "How much?" He goes, $1.50. And I went, "Oh, come on. $1.50? Come on. $1.25. He goes, "I'll give you one for $1, the smaller one." I'm like, "No, $1.25 for the big one." And he goes, $1.25. And I just put it down and walked out. I left mid-negotiation as if I were teaching him a lesson. I was pissed off that I left in the middle of a haggle. I wasn't even trying to haggle. I don't even know what I was trying to do. I went down the street and paid $1.50 for a lighter. What a fucking idiot. Needless to say, I've had a great time in New York, and there's a couple things I got to tell you about before I get into the fact that I can't even be nostalgic anymore because everything that I once knew here is kind of gone. It's a little sad. I might have talked about this before, but I go to the Lower East Side so I can walk around and see if I can kind of walk in the heart that I once had when I lived down there for so many years, wandering around those streets, sweating in the summer, festering. The fall is the most beautiful time. And there's just nothing left. I don't even know, not that I need heroin, but I don't even know if they sell heroin down there. Clearly that's been gone for a while. There are restaurants. There's a cafe, a lovely Italian restaurant where they used to sell heroin right next door to my old apartment. But if you do, I swear to God, the tone of the Lower East Side right now, I imagine if you are looking for heroin, you might be able to find some locally grown poppy heroin, organic heroin perhaps, that is sold to you in either biodegradable plastic envelopes or perhaps hand-pressed paper bindles. I don't know. I don't know where it is. I wasn't looking for it, but I miss that tone, that texture. I miss that part of the Lower East Side. I'm just exhausted. I mean, it's been a long couple of days, and the subway is really where I learn. Usually, you get into a New York frame of mind. That's a song, isn't it? Not unlike Plain Brain, where you just sort of put your blinders on. You get in it, you're in the groove. But I get on the subway now, and I just feel assaulted by the aura of others. I cannot separate from myself from the sweat and stink and the fact that there's somebody sitting right, or standing right in front of me, holding a guardrail. I'm on the chair. His dick is pretty much face level to me, and I got to deal with that. And I got to deal with just being surrounded. My boundaries are too porous to have people pressing their lives into me involuntarily through some sort of weird orgone energy, if you dig what I'm saying. It's draining. I can't shut it down anymore. I get exhausted and anxious. Beautiful city, though. I got to say, I do love it. It's just getting a little hard for me to come out here. I did go see some old friends. I traveled way out to Queens to interview an old friend of mine. It was very interesting, and I'll get that up. I don't need to tell you who it is right now. But what else? Oh, okay. Stitcher Radio is a partner on this episode, and since the last time I talked to you about Stitcher, they've gone and completely redesigned their app. Get the new Stitcher app by going to Stitcher.com/WTF or search the iTunes or Android app stores. It's got a brand new visual design, so if you already have it, don't forget to update it on your device. Stitcher is a fast and easy way to hear all your favorite podcasts and radio shows without downloading or syncing. That's Stitcher.com/WTF, and we're told you can still enter to win an iPad 2 when you download that app for free. So you can do that. Did I mention this as well? Can I mention one other thing? We are sponsored today in part by Comedy Central. Tune in to the world premiere of Jeff Dunham's new special, Controlled Chaos. That's right, the guy with the puppets. Sunday at 9 p.m., 8 Central on Comedy Central. Check out previews, behind-the-scenes clips, and trailers on cc.com/standup. I know a lot of you are saying, really, Mark? Jeff Dunham, the guy with the puppets? But I also know that some of you, either secretly or not so secretly, are like, oh, Jeff Dunham. I'm going to check that out. I know that about you, some of you. Do it if you'd like. One last thing, though, about New York and about Monday's show. We had a big live WTF. I mean, it was a big clusterfuck of a WTF, and I'm so proud of it, that we're going to put it up Monday for a couple of reasons. I know there's some live ones that we haven't put up yet, but this one was special. It was at the Bell House. It was one show, and I'm just going to go down this lineup for you, because here's what I did. I got Ira Glass. He was a special guest. He came out first, all right? Then I got Morgan Spurlock, okay? Then I got Elna Baker, who talked about becoming a non-Mormon after being a Mormon. Mind-blowing. Then I got this Professor Wayne Kostenbaum, who wrote this insanely interesting book that I can't put down called Humiliation. Then I got Joe Mandy, who's always good in a pinch. Hilarious. Then I got Nick Griffin, who I haven't talked to in a while. Hilarious. Then I got Nick DiPaolo, and he brings Artie Lang. I haven't seen Artie Lang or heard about Artie Lang in months, and the last I heard, it wasn't good. And I got to be honest with you, folks, he came out swinging, he sat down, he was fucking hilarious, and I want to put it up Monday because I want everyone to know Artie's okay and that he's fucking hilarious. I just want it out there, so we're putting that up Monday. What an amazing time. Ira Glass talks about blacking out and throwing up and being drunk. I got to put it up Monday. Is that okay with you guys? Is there other things we need to talk about? Don't get me wrong. I love New York. I'm just tired. I'm covered in grime. You know, I took a train to Queens, and then I took a train. And also, I'll tell you, if you listen on Monday, I'll tell you how it got started, what my New York trip was like at the beginning, and it has to do with Hasidic Jews and me being incredibly aggravated. Did I mention that the pilot premiere went great? Thank you all for coming out to the New York Television Festival. We had a wonderful turnout, and everybody liked the show. I was thrilled to see it on a big screen. I hope that it becomes a show. I'm very excited about that. All right, enough about me. All right? Okay? Enough. Let's listen to Chris Hardwick and me back in the garage. Folks, if you enjoy the music from this show, the guy who makes most of it, John Montagna, has put together the WTF album featuring the WTF theme song and all the remixes you hear in the show, as well as other original songs. Go to WTFpod.com or johnmontagna.com. That's JONMONTAGNA.com for links to buy CDs and digital copies. I'd like to believe that I'm capable of organizing things, but I'm really just not. I mean, look at this. Like, there's nothing I can do about this table. No matter what I do to it, there's no way it's not going to end up like this.
You know, I've noticed, I've noticed just having a girlfriend for so long who is neat and tidy.
Where do I get one of those?
It's something you, it's something you have to. I should totally rent her out.
Yeah, you should, man.
Neat and tidy girlfriend.
Pimp her out.
honey, $800 a week. I mean, come on.
All you got to do is clean his table up.
$3,200 a month. I mean,
tell him he's funny.
And then you pack up a few things, you go home, fold the napkins, put them in the drawers.
Nothing sexual.
Yeah.
It's not even house cleaning.
No.
He just needs to feel like things are organized.
The sexual release comes out of the fact that the towels are color coordinated and in the right drawer.
I just don't know how it happens.
It is a daily process. It's a daily process. Here's sort of a weird example. My finances used to be a mess when I was a fat drunk. My finances were a mess. I never knew how much money I had. And then when everything started cleaning up, I made this deal with myself where I went into Quicken, and every morning I would automatically download whatever transactions happened, that just cleared. And I would just categorize them. It took me 4 minutes every day. But the result of that was at the end of the year, everything was done, and all I had to do was just send the file to my tax guy. So it's just about consistent, tiny actions preventing that one horrible action where eventually what'll happen is just go, fuck everything, and you'll just throw it into the trash can, all of it at once.
It's discipline, man.
Yeah.
It's those little things. But I mean, I can do that and still everything will become a fucking mess. And then I don't know how to even manage all the shit that comes in between mail, emails, text, things at the post office. It just seems like a never-ending tidal wave of shit I have to deal with. And then I hired somebody to deal with that, and now, I'm worried about her, whether or not she deals with it.
So then you have to manage her dealing with everything, yeah.
Chris Hardwick in the garage again, but I'm doing my podcast this time.
It's very exciting.
Is it?
Yes, because I'm excited about all the stuff. I mean, I get gushy because I just get excited, but I feel like whenever, because you just did your show and your podcast is going well, and I just feel like it's nice to see your friends succeed.
Oh, you're starting off on such a nice foot. How am I going to be a dick now?
You could still jam your foot down my neck and be like, "Shut up, nerd."
Well, no, I'm glad that you appreciate that. I am starting to feel some unity among us. That when something good happens for a fellow podcaster, it's a benefit to all.
It really is. I mean, so you can sort of. I just did Jeff Ulrich's, Scott Aukerman's partner. I just did his podcast.
Yeah, the business of
podcasting.
Sure.
And I said, listen.
With nervous Jeff Ulrich?
With nervous Jeff Ulrich. He was great. But what I love is that, you can either have this sort of altruistic approach of, hey, it's great when we all succeed because everyone should be happy and everyone should get what they want. And you guys are all funny.
That's such a lie.
And then there's the selfish point of view, which is, hey, when one person does well, then it raises the game for everyone because it raises awareness.
All I know is that on a day-to-day basis, and it's so irrelevant because it's not even based on anything tangible in a real way. As long as you're beneath me on the iTunes, count,
yes,
I'm fine. As long as Nerdist, when you go above me in the top 10 or wherever we may be,
it's a fun talk. But you've been on top more lately.
No, I think in the big picture I've been on top a lot more than you, but I'm saying that just on a day-to-day basis.
That's the foot on the neck.
But it doesn't even matter. That's not. I mean, I know what my real numbers are. You know what your real numbers
absolutely.
are. That's just this public display of some algorithm that I don't even understand what they base that on. It's not based on downloads.
I'm not 100% sure. I think some of it has to do because Apple won't tell you what it's based on.
It's based on subscribers, comments,
new subscribers, comments, ratings. Like there's
it's got nothing to do with actual numbers.
Right, exactly. I mean, if it had to do with actual numbers, Corolla would probably always be on top because he does like 5 days a week.
Right,
and,
right. He usually is always on top.
So, but you, because you've been, you're sort of becoming the guy of you're sort of becoming the face of comics with successful podcasts.
Right.
Like between the New York Times piece and the Entertainment Weekly and all that. So. That's going to drive your numbers up.
Yeah, I mean, I can see what my real numbers are, and I'm fine. Everything's cool, but it's just so weird that thing. I'm kind of obsessed with it, and I'm ashamed of it. Out of all things to be obsessed with in my life, it's got to be that fucking iTunes thing.
No, it's you shouldn't be obsessed with it because that's just sort of an innate biological structure in your brain, and that's the best road marker you have for how you're doing in the field.
But it's not. My road marker is my real numbers. The iTunes thing is just something everyone sees, and I'm thinking,
but you're come
on, how many times do you check it? Seriously.
We're animals and we're competitive animals. Truthfully, I probably check iTunes once or twice a week and just kind of go on and see where are we? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Not to see. I don't expect to be number one. I just want to make sure we haven't dropped down to like 50.
Or dropped out of the
like,
yeah.
oh my God, the dream's over. Like
Yeah.
we had a dip in numbers around the Christmas holidays.
Yeah.
And so I told Matt and Jonah, I was like, it's been a fun ride. It's probably downhill from here. And Matt's like, no, on the holidays, this is what happens.
That's true, but also like you've got listeners, and we are doing some form of audio entertainment, so they are our people.
Yeah.
It would take something drastic for you to just be like, I'm not really a nerd. Look, I'm an asshole.
And also, I know that when I started doing the podcast, it wasn't about that. It was about having my own thing, and it was also about
getting people in the room.
And I'm gonna do it no matter what. Like I know there are gonna be dips if less people listen this month than last month. I'm still can do it.
Where are you getting most of your new listeners from? From the G4 show, or from what do you know?
I think it's just a composite.
But it's just, like, what all are you doing? Let's name the projects. Let's go down the list of Chris Hardwick projects.
Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so there's the Attack of the Show and Web Soup, which are both on G4.
Yeah. How many people watch that?
I don't know. I honestly, I genuinely don't know. I never ask because
it's available on television.
It is available on television
on Time Warner Cable.
It's probably available on Time Warner Cable, not on DirecTV. I mean, the numbers are good for G4. Probably not massive.
Who is their audience? I mean, what is that network directed towards? I don't have time to watch anything but Chopped.
It's fine.
You watch Chopped?
No. What
it's
is
on the Food Network.
No.
You've got a food problem. So
I don't. I do it for assigning labels.
You're
Here we go.
Anorexic freak.
I'm a naturally skinny individual.
No, I don't buy it. How far did you run yesterday?
I didn't run yesterday. I work out like twice a week.
Come on!
I swear to God, I work out twice a week. When I eat, I pretty much eat what I want. I just don't like.
I guess I'm hung up on it because I remember when you were sort of bloated.
Well, that's because I was drinking 15 beers a day. I mean, like that, and eating pizza at 3:00 in the morning.
Oh, so no more pizza?
No, not at 3:00 in the morning.
Okay.
I don't know. Like I have good. Like if I'm eating a dessert, I don't feel like I have to eat this whole thing. I'll eat like half of it and go. I get the idea.
Oh, fuck you.
I just don't have a problem with food that way.
Come on.
I know.
Even if you're full, you mean when you're full, you stop eating?
I don't eat till I'm full because I always then I just feel sick. But I did not have that control with drinking at all, ever. Never had that control with drinking.
Yeah,
never stopped.
So you got the G4 shows.
Yeah, G4 shows. I don't know what the audiences are.
But you don't know who they're marketing towards?
Yeah, like young males.
Okay.
I mean, everyone bandies around some form of 18 to 34, 15 to 34, or whatever. So it's predominantly male audience. I do Chelsea show every couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's right. You're on that thing.
Yeah, I don't know how much that drives to the podcast because
does she introduce you as the host of the podcast?
Yeah, if I feel like promoting it, but I just don't know. I don't know if a lot of nerds watch that show. It's a slightly different demographic.
Yeah,
so I don't know how much that's driving people to the podcast.
Angry independent women and gay men.
But it's a fun show to do.
No, she's got her own thing going. I got props to her. I don't know how to. I don't know how I'm sure I do fine on that show, but I haven't really pursued trying to do it, but I would like to get her on my show. Has she done your show?
No, I never asked, just because
she runs a weird ship there, though, right? She's really the queen of that thing.
She is, and also, I'm the kind of person where when I go into a situation like that, I just don't want to make it more complicated. Like, I don't want to be the cog in the wheel that's like, hey, will you? Because I feel like, especially,
you just want to keep your thing going.
Well, it's like they're nice to have me on the show every couple weeks. I come in, I do my jokes, I leave.
Yeah,
I just feel like. I'm sure because she's blown up in the last couple of years, everyone's always tugging at her for shit, and I just don't want to be. If she's not familiar with the podcast, I don't want to be like, "Will you do my podcast?"
Yeah.
So if
you don't have a friendly relationship with her necessarily. You're a guy on her show.
Yeah, I'm a guy on her show. I've hung out with her socially twice. She's always been really cool to me, but it's not like
boozing.
What was it? A Christmas party? So
sure, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't, but
is everything a great? I feel like every day is a Christmas party over there. No,
and it seems like they have fun over there.
Yeah,
it seems like there's always a margaritas afoot somewhere.
All right, so there you are. So you're on Chelsea, twice a month. G4 shows, 2 shows on G4.
Yeah, 2 shows G4.
Podcast.
Got the podcast. We just shot I'm doing stuff for BBC. I'm doing interstitials for BBC.
Now, is that BBC America?
BBC America,
What does that mean? Is that going to be on BBC in London as well? Or in England? Or
I don't know, but I doubt it.
So this is they're trying to, I mean, have they been around a long time? BBC?
Yeah, BBC America's been around for a little while.
Because they do the British news here.
They do, and they show Doctor Who, they show Top Gear, they show British programming, and
you love Doctor Who.
I love it. I've always, for me, being when I was growing up in the 80s, nerdy culture was very hard to find in America.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of British comedy expats, like nerds had to seek it out like it was a video game treasure.
Right.
And so, we'd watch The Young Ones or The Day Today or, any
but
of the Chris Moore stuff.
That's just Anglophile comedy taste. Now, what defines a nerd? I'm trying to get some clarity around this.
I understand.
Well, no, because I don't think I'm a nerd really.
My definition of nerd, because we would get a lot of shit in the beginning of the podcast for calling it Nerdist, and then people were like, I listen, you guys didn't talk about fucking video games. I'm like, well, that's an accidental quality of what some nerds are attracted to.
But when you came up with that name, were you like, this is it, this is an all-encompassing brand, this is a movement, this is a...
No, when I came up with the name, I just thought, I want to have a website that's about a bigger idea than just me, because I won't write about myself every day, but at least, and for me... I mean, I was, like, growing up in the 80s, nerds, there was no ironic coolness to it. It was just like, I got beaten up and I was in chess club and...
Yeah.
And
you were in chess club?
Chess club, computer camp. I have fucking chess trophies, and my mom still has them. Computer camp, debate club. I was president of the Latin club. Like, any kind of academic thing I was into, and no girls in sight anywhere. And so then it sort of became it became, like, ironically... retroactively cool to be nerds because so much nerd culture and technology and gaming permeated pop culture.
Well, now, it sort of took it over.
Yeah, it took it over. So
you didn't have any grand designs like Nerdist Universe.
I mean, I guess in the beginning I thought, it'd be fun if, but it was just a way to write about things that I was interested in that were about me because they were point of view related, but not about me personally all the time.
All right, so let me try to get at the core of because I think we might have talked about it. For some reason in my brain, it just wants to insist that you're completely fabricated. that the whole thing's just bullshit. And
I understand.
No, I'm not being mean.
I don't think you're being mean
because,
at all.
Like, my memory of you, like, first and foremost was that, you were on TV with Jenny McCarthy and you were a fucking cool guy. So I'm like, how
really?
did
with those hair drapes? No.
No, but that was rock and roll. That was what it was. That was the 80s,
I
early
was
90s.
never comfortable on that set. I was never comfortable.
But do you understand how I can misunderstand it?
I absolutely understand.
You were cute and you had the boobs there and you were doing the thing.
I absolutely understand what you're saying. I would say the same thing to someone.
When you started, like, okay, so what was the upbringing? So when you were in elementary school, you were doing chess club, no girls, nobody liked you. Dad was a bowler.
Professional bowler, but
that was the other thing. I went bowling with you, and I was like, fuck this. Look at that. Got his own ball. Mr. Twist it, slide it around, make the ball do tricks.
That doesn't impress anybody.
That's really the most impressive thing that I've seen you do.
Is the bowling thing. Like, I don't give a shit about the other nerds.
You can make it, like, just go all the way right, almost to the edge. You can hook it.
I can hook the ball into the pocket.
Spin that fucker.
Throw it out to the first board and bring that fucker right back into the pocket. Yep.
And then you go, look, Dad.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, that's actually what, but for me, it was, I grew up, we moved a lot when I was a kid. My dad was on the Pro Bowlers tour. He opened a bowling center in Memphis, Tennessee in 1981. And, I was an only child, and my mother's
You're still an only child?
Still an only child. I have a half brother who lives in Tennessee, but we didn't grow up together.
But only child, that's a lot of pressure. Like, you were like, don't die.
Please don't die. Yeah, I know. Like, I just, my mom's adorable, but she hugged a little too hard.
Yeah, don't please.
Yeah, in high school, I remember coming home like an hour late, and she was just in the kitchen like, where were you? I'm like, are we dating? What the fuck's going on?
And yes.
And yes.
Yeah.
I love your joke. One of my favorite jokes of all time is your joke about, like...
I'm not in love with my mother.
And you can fuck your mom, but you know that when you go to college, you get that weeb, like, right there, you can fuck her right there, then you can fuck her.
I hardly ever do that joke.
It's a gorgeous joke.
Where I say, I love my mother, but I'm not in love with her.
Yes,
and then people groan, and I'm like, what? You can totally fuck your mom.
It is a great joke.
Yeah, I don't do it that much. It's gnarly.
It's a good one. If you think about putting it back into rotation, I think
I will.
Think it's a
okay, I'll do
joke.
it. I'm happy. I'll do it on Conan. We'll see how that goes.
So I, as an only child, I was very kind of introverted, and so all of my interests were, computers, and my grandfather was a technophile, so he had all the gaming systems, and I got my first computer in 1981, and I had all the gaming systems. I played the arcade systems in the bowling centers, and like I said,
Space Invaders,
Pac-Man, Gorf, Robotron 2084, Defender, Galaga,
the Meteor one,
Asteroids,
the Vector
graphics,
Galaga.
Galaga.
I
Yep.
was good at Galaga.
Galaga was great, and you can get a lot of those emulators on. I have the Atari 2600 emulator on my phone.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because Galaga, you'd be always surprised where it's like, oh, new things.
Yep, Galaga, and Galaga was. So there was a certain badge of honor to, to the video game world back then.
No,
All
I
the stuff you
remember.
saw in King of Kong was what it was like back then.
The first time I played video games was at a bowling alley, Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Nice.
On Lomas. I'm now Holiday Bowl, maybe. Yeah. I was never a good bowler, but that was the only place where we get a machine.
Oh my God! I see, and I love to call my dad when I'm in another town and I see a rundown bowling center.
Yeah.
So like I would totally call my dad and go, "Holiday Bowl," and he'd go, "Yeah, I was bowling a tournament there. I got a blowjob out back behind the dumpster in '68." Like fucking awesome! Like my dad is just like this blowjob geomap or whatever. Because in the '60s, bowling was cool.
People would blow bowlers.
And bowlers got blown, and they were treated like athletes, rock stars, and obviously that's not quite.
So,
the
do you
same.
like the movie Kingpin?
I love the movie Kingpin, and
What's your dad say about
my
it?
dad's take on it is, yeah, it's a cute movie, but I did hustle, and that wasn't how it was. And I'm like, yeah, I know the Amish don't bowl either. Like, where are you going to suspend your disbelief?
But there was that sort of hustling element to it.
Totally. Like my dad's got the fucking greatest stories about.
Have you had him on your podcast?
No, because he lives in Florida, and we're not set up to take calls. But I will get him on one of these days just to sit and chat with him. He's got the greatest like. Yeah, it's 3. He used to have to sneak out of his house to bowl pot games at night. Like in the middle of the night, they'd close the bowling center down, and he'd bowl again. He was like, yeah, one time these carnies were in town. There was a carnival.
So they had underground bowling
bowling games for money, like illegal pot games. And he goes, so these carnies were in town, and I used to hustle. So I'd shoot, these guys came in, and I told him I was a 150 average bowler, and the guy puts a gun on the table. And my dad goes, what's the gun for? And the guy goes, that's to make sure you're a 150 average bowler.
Oh my God.
So naturally, my dad was a 150 average bowler for that game.
Oh God.
So
they called him, huh?
Yeah, they totally called him on it.
Fuck.
I've always wanted to do
life-threatening bowling.
Like, who would have thought?
Oh my God. Well, anything that anybody can gamble on can become life-threatening.
Yeah, as long as there's money, there's a politic, and there's a gun.
Yeah. So your parents stayed married throughout your...
No, my parents split up when I was 11.
So that must have that sent you back further into yourself.
Yes, I'm sure it did, because we moved again. I went to
no.
Denver after that, and then ultimately to Los Angeles.
And you'd probably, did you have those weird trips where you go visit your dad, and then you'd be at a bowling alley, and he'd be like, "That's my kid," and you'd sit there out talking to some floozy that would later blow your dad?
Possibly.
You don't remember it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, I spent most of my time in the bowling center either bowling or in front of a video game.
Remember when the video games had cigarette burns on them?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like the
yeah.
plastic on the
Yeah,
cabinets.
it was all
yeah.
melty.
I used to have to try to clean those off, like as the sort of prom, like I
Oh,
was
really?
the porter.
You worked at a bowling
I worked
alley?
at my dad's bowling center when I was a kid.
So he had a bowling alley. You're saying bowling center. I picture something
I'm sorry.
different.
It's that's just a vernacular. It doesn't mean anything really. It was ingrained to me like a bowling alley meant a really divey place, and a bowling center was more family oriented.
And was it?
Yes, it was. It
Didn't
absolutely
get
was.
divey over time?
Never got divey.
So were you like doing all the stuff like, give me size 7 shoes?
Spraying the shoes,
Oh.
having to run down the lane and knock got deadwood on 10, got to knock the pin off the lane when it falls into the gutter.
Did you have a restaurant in there?
There was a restaurant in there and
French
a very
fries?
prominent bar, French fries.
Yeah.
Billy Burgers, they would call them.
That's your dad's name?
My dad's name was Billy. Not
Billy
Burger,
Hardwick?
Billy Hardwick. And
What happened to the bowling center, man?
still there. 30th anniversary. Still there.
Does he still own it?
Yeah.
It's in Florida?
It's in Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee.
So he runs it from Florida?
Runs it from Florida. Yeah, my stepsisters kind of run it, and he's still. My dad's a control freak too, so he's still on the phone every day.
Really? What's
Yeah.
going on? How the fries selling?
How the fry? Everything going okay? League down? All right,
Billy Burger's up?
Billy Burger's up. Billy Burger's up. Well, those early.
What's on a Billy Burger?
I don't know. It's just
come
It's just
on.
meat, and it's a fucking burger that
Okay.
they've. That's
nothing special.
just branding.
Uh-huh.
My dad ejaculates on every bun.
Oh, after he gets blown by that bowling floozy.
So everyone wins.
Yeah. So all right. So what other video games did you have in the center?
I named a bunch of those. We had Donkey Kong Jr., Donkey Kong, Tron,
So you had a whole arcade.
Mario Brothers. Yeah, I leaned on him to put an arcade in the bowling center, and so it was huge. We had a
So
massive
you were
arcade.
sort of like cutting edge. You're like.
I was an early adopter. I was
Did
an
he
early
make money
adopter gamer.
with a bunch of kids playing hooky and hanging around all night?
I guess so. Yeah.
How old are you? You're younger than me.
Yeah, I'm 39.
For real?
Yeah,
Seriously?
I really am.
Come on.
What? I know I don't look older than that.
All right, 39.
I was born in 1971.
All right, you got it down. So, all right, so I'm 47. So that means when I was in high school, that's when Space Invaders came out. So I must have been 15 or 14. So you must have been a little fucking kid when that shit came out.
Absolutely.
So were you hustling fucking teenagers?
Well, I wouldn't have been allowed to do that. But yeah, I mean, there were certainly like, there were street rat kids who would come out, like
How old were you when you could go through a whole fucking rack of Space Invaders?
It was pretty early on. I mean, it didn't, the thing about the video game culture was that it didn't take long to kind of dominate the game. You'd go in you'd see a new game and you're like, all right, what's the take on this? You'd watch a couple kids play and then you would get, just plunk $20 down, get a roll of quarters and then just go.
Figure it out.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could kind of get a game down and figure out. I mean, back then the programming wasn't that complex. They all had patterns. You could figure out as soon as it was like looking at those stereogram pictures where you blur your eyes and the image comes out, which I can never fucking see.
Yeah.
But as soon as you could spot the pattern, it was done. Like you own the game.
Right.
And that never took super long. Dragon's Lair was a great Laserdisc based game.
Yeah, I never could turn over a game ever, but so I never locked in that
kill screen, guys. There's gonna be a kill screen. We're gonna see a kill screen over here, you guys.
What does that mean?
It's from King of Kong. There's a point in Donkey Kong where the game just automatically kills you. Like you've been playing it so long, and your score that you get to a certain level and then you just die.
And you got there?
Yeah, and they're just like, you're done.
Yeah. Next.
Yeah, you'd be like, are you really going to play? And because
how can we make money?
In these
off
game
of this
designers' minds, they never imagined initially like someone's going to play this game for 27 hours straight. So we'll just kill it,
I remember Defender had some good noises.
Defender had good noises. You had hyperspace with Defender.
Oh yeah.
Phew, but you might blow up if you hyperspace. So there was a little bit of a crapshoot. You didn't know. You didn't fucking know. But all those the early 8-bit games and vector art based games.
So now when did the competition with your dad end as far as your bowling career?
That's interesting. It never happened. My dad had a terrible relationship with his father, and so he never felt like he had to put any pressure on me to do anything. He was always like, you need to do whatever you want to do. I left home when I was 17 because my father was an asshole and I didn't get along with him, and I'm never going to be that to you. So bowl or don't bowl, just do what makes you happy.
Right.
And so I bowled up until I was about 13 when my parents split up and we moved away, and I did all these like crazy... I was a good bowler. I did all these I did the Mike Douglas show in in 81.
Really?
1980, yeah. Like just bowling against Jimmy Walker, and I was really...
Did he say dynamite?
He said dynamite, yeah, of course. Yeah, it was contractually. Was he not going to say not dynamite?
Right. So did he say this kid is dynamite?
It figured in there somewhere.
So,
yeah.
I mean, but what do you mean? They set up an alley?
We went to a bowling. We went to a bowling center
with Mike Douglas.
With Mike Douglas in Hollywood, and
because you were some wonder kind. How'd you get the gig?
Yeah, because I was a really good bowler. Oh, because I was 8 and I was like shooting like 240.
So you were this freak that would do the talk show circuits?
I was the Tiger Woods of bowling, but I was a Caucasian.
What other talk shows did you do?
I did, oh my God, I did the Richard Simmons show. It was crazy. They exercised on the lanes. It was the weirdest thing I've ever done.
So he did a shoot at a bowling alley specifically to showcase you?
Well, they did a shoot at a bowling alley, and then they brought me in as someone who was involved in that world.
Yeah. The freak. The kid.
Yeah. I did local news shows. I did Captain Kangaroo. I was on Captain Kangaroo.
You were on Captain Kangaroo?
Yeah.
Bowling?
They did a remote segment where I bowled against... I went to Florida and bowled against...
Do you have footage?
I don't know where any of it is. I'm sick about it. It didn't survive a move or something happened.
Oh, you had it on videotape?
I had it all on VHS tape and it's gone. I don't know where any of it is.
So did your mother move to California?
My mother and my mother remarried in 85 and we moved to Denver with my stepfather, and then in 88 we moved to Los Angeles. And so I just...
How old were you?
In 88 I was 16, turning 17.
So you're 3 years out of the bowling racket and you're in LA.
I'm in L.A., yeah.
Hanging out, running around the streets. Where'd you live in Los Angeles?
Pasadena.
Oh, right over here.
Not that far from here.
So you'd go out at night, drive into the Strip?
No, I was never that adventurous.
No.
For the insane booze bag I became in my 20s, I was a surprisingly tight-assed teenager.
But how did you go from, like, when you started doing, like, you're on Captain Kangaroo, was he a nice guy? Did he smell funny?
I did not meet Bob Keeshan. It was a remote shoot, so I never met him.
And you did the Mike Douglas show, you did local news shows.
Yes.
What other big breaks were there when you were the bowling freak?
Well, when you think it can't get any bigger, it didn't. That was it. I quit bowling when I was 13,
But you still got it. It's like muscle memory, huh?
Yeah, it's kind of muscle memory. You sort of, this feels familiar.
But do you ever just say, like, I want to go bowling?
Yeah, I just never have time anymore.
But you used to bowl recreationally?
Yeah, but bowling's one of those. It's like the same reason why it's hard for me to play chess anymore, because I played competitive chess from like most of the time I was in school, and it's very difficult for me to just do it for fun. Like that's where I get really competitive. And when I'm playing chess, I'm trying to think 8 moves ahead with every piece, and it hurts my brain now. And so I can't do it for fun. Like, I have to do it the way that I was programmed to do it.
Competitively.
Very competitively. Yeah.
With all things.
You know who is a fucking insane chess
Who?
fanatic? Is Jim Norton. And I never would have had any idea, but when I did the Opie and Anthony show and Norton was on, I mentioned chess, and he's like, "Oh yeah, so I was watching this documentary in Kasparov," and he starts naming off. We start talking about Bobby Fischer and Karpov and Kasparov and all these great chess players, and he's an insane chess fanatic.
Well, there was a bit of time there in New York at the Comedy Cellar. You know, there's that whole chess scene in Washington Square Park. Mm-hmm. So there were dudes that used to sort of linger around and go do that chess hustle. I didn't know him. It was a little before his time, but I didn't know he was a chess player. But I know CK was trying to get good at it. I don't know if he ever did. But are you like, how are your chess chops?
I don't know. I'm sure they would be terrible now. I mean,
do you have it on your phone? I
do have chess on my phone, and I'll play it every once in a while, and then I just start to feel the pressure of competitive chess. I mean, it's like these are field trips, and you're going to the middle of Tennessee to play in these school tournaments, and you're trying to
just a fucking nerd fest.
You're trying to psych out other kids, and it's worse than being bullied by jocks because they'll just hit you and it heals. But
with the brain,
these guys are trying to get under your skin, and you sit down and they're like, "Do you feel okay? You look a little pale." And even though they're trying to psych you out, it gets under your skin. You're like, "Does he think I'm that fucking stupid that I don't know what he's doing?" And then your head's out of the game. So it's just a weird.
Now, did your dad, as time went on, and even though he told you could do whatever you wanted to do, did he feel like, my son's become this nerdy freak? Like, what did I create? What's with the chess and the?
No, I think he just didn't get a lot of what I think he just like all the comedy that I loved and the things that I was into were just different from what my parents were.
Was he a boozer?
Yeah, my dad's a drinker. Yeah, he's still. We had a hilarious conversation. I mean, he drinks a few beers a day now. He's 70 years old in a couple of weeks. It's like, why, is he fucking not have a few beers a day now? I don't give a shit. But we had a conversation last year. I was visiting him, and he goes, "Yeah, so I'm doing like 7 or 8 beers a day because at a certain point you just got to slow down." I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" Like, he literally. It's like when a dog chews your slipper and you're like, "Why did you do that?" And they're like, "No, I just found a chewy thing. It's my nature."
Right.
He didn't know. Like, he just didn't occur to him. I literally laughed in his face.
Because, like, did you have any idea that he was drinking much more than that every day?
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, it's just, he never drinks before 5, but at 5 p.m., like, he cracks open a Bud Light.
Yeah.
And he just sips it, and just throughout the night, he just very casual. He doesn't get drunk anymore.
Doesn't freak out.
Doesn't go out and get nuts. He
just get his bowling ball. And
does.
Why? Start throwing it.
You did this to me, and he just throws it through his trophy case. Say, the old man can still knock some stuff over.
Yeah.
But
none of that, huh?
None of that. He's a very casual drinker, but
So how do you get from being this nerd kid to being this sort of like, suave kind of, MTV personality? What was the trajectory of your TV career?
There was no suaveness with MTV or ever. The ridiculous story of it is when I was in college.
Where'd you go?
I went to UCLA. I entered UCLA as a math major, and
a math major?
Yeah.
Jesus fucking Christ.
And then I found the math program.
How are your math chops?
Well, they're not. I mean, I was in math probably for about a year-ish.
What'd you top out at? Calculus?
What did we top out at? I don't even remember.
Did you make it through calculus in high school?
Yeah. I mean, I went to like crazy prep school and did all the AP classes and like Latin and like all this crazy.
You speak Latin?
Well, you know, Latin's not a spoken language. It's a written language. No one really speaks it anymore. But
it doesn't mean you can't speak.
You can speak it. Then there's
Nerdist Latin.
No, Nerdist is not Latin. There are different camps about, like, the church has its pronunciations and the Romans, like, there's Roman pronunciation for Latin.
Did you get involved in that controversy, Hardwick?
I went to all boys Catholic school. So I had, you know, like, one year I had a secular Latin teacher, and then the next year it was like a Jesuit Latin teacher, and so then they change all the pronunciations, and you're like, oh, long vowel here, and then you don't pronounce the V, and then here's the W, you know.
So were you brought up with an active engagement in the idea of hell?
Not so much, but certainly in an idea of my mother's Italian Catholic.
For real?
For reals.
And she still holds on to that?
Yeah. I mean, she's not fire and brimstone, but the Jesuits that taught me, they're a fairly, in terms of interpretation of their religion, it's a very liberal sect of the religion. So they teach, like, my mother cried the day I told her that my theology teacher was teaching us a symbolic interpretation of the Old Testament, where she was like, no, it literally happened. I'm like, well, no, it probably didn't literally happen that way.
Yeah, when you told your mother that hell was optional. Optional. We can
It's
opt out
optional,
of hell.
and then these stories, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. At one point, there were all these tribes that had to vie for superiority, and so they pulled all these different mythologies together to create this one unified.
Yeah.
You know, but it was all political. It's at a time when politics and science and religion were the same thing.
Right.
And so in a weird
It broke her heart.
It broke her heart a little bit. So in a weird sort of way, the Jesuits kind of woke me up to, like, it was the first time I was like, oh, you know, I never really questioned it before, but I guess, yeah, of course.
Oh, so it was like one of those brain blossoms where you're like, oh my God.
Yeah,
You all of a
exactly.
sudden got this little portal into what it felt like to have freedom of mind.
Exactly. So it's not like, oh, wait, because
Yeah.
then you start getting into these weird kind of paradox, these moments of paradox where you go, okay, on the one hand, I know I heard a priest say we have free will, but on the other hand, I heard him say that everything happens for a reason, and those two concepts cannot exist in one spot. You either have free will or things happen for a reason.
Well, maybe you can have free will, and in retrospect, you say maybe things
Things happen for a reason.
Yeah,
But in fact,
there's like a second of there's a beat between the two.
Wouldn't it be?
You have free will, and then a second later, you're like, oh,
that's of course it had to happen that way. But do you ever have this moment where you go, it would be really great if I had religion. It would be really great if I just had a sense that I didn't have to question everything, and I just had that sort of like, well, everything's because this wizard in the sky said this, and I feel okay, like a prefab belief system.
Well, I have, as I get older, you know, having not had religion or ever really being brought up with it in any real way, I find that the closest I get to it is realizing that almost everything is out of my control. And there are certain things I'm never going to understand, because first of all, I don't have time to research them, and I actually have very little control over everything.
Right.
So if I can stay in that and not start projecting stuff into some sort of fear, because I think the only thing that you buy with religion is a manufactured or dogmatic peace of mind.
Sure.
So you don't have to ever kind of go into some existential tailspin.
Yes, exactly. That's why we suffer. These are part of the reasons why we suffer from anxiety and depression and these types of things, because you start trying to grasp things that are to some extent ungraspable by your mind.
Well, it comes down to meaning and what's it all mean.
Right.
You know, what is the point of it all? And you know,
it's got to mean something, right? It's got to mean something.
Well, it does. It means whatever's happening now, or whatever you've accomplished, or treating other people well. But in the big picture, who the fuck knows? Maybe that's the one glitch that we have, is that it doesn't mean much of anything, and we're really not that much different than other animals in that way, and we just can't, sort of integrate that into the human spectrum of things, because we have such a deep understanding of.
Are you worried about dying?
I don't think about it, but lately, I realize, everyone's going to get cancer, and something's going to happen. I don't know if I'm worried about it. It seems, I think it just comes that moment. I hope it's relatively painless. I don't have to suffer too much, and I think that it's just that one moment, and then I think after that, I'm not going to speculate, but I know I'm not going to be worried anymore.
I mean, listen, you didn't have awareness pre you being here.
Yeah.
So
I don't mind going back to
it
that.
might just be a state. It just might be a state of non-awareness.
I just don't want to be die in a weird way, like standing up or like in a crowd,
right?
Or or something too dramatic.
Ladies and gentlemen, Marc Maron. Hey guys, great to and it's on YouTube.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. Actually. But that'd probably be the only thing you're remembered for. Mark who? That dude who died on YouTube. Oh, fuck, that was awesome.
Didn't he have a podcast? Who fucking gives a shit these days?
Check out the video.
Then we had a show and a career. I
Here's a
can't get
mashup of all those clips from Conan and then him dying on stage. Oh, how do we get here? All right, so you're a math major.
I was a math major. Then I went to and then, I studied some animation for a while, but ended up in the philosophy department.
Really?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, Hardwick, you're a lot broader than I thought.
Well,
I had really pigeonholed you into a whole fucking horrendous idea of who
I understand.
you were.
If I had seen me on MTV, and I did, I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, but I mean, we've been in the same social circles for 15 years, 20 years now.
Almost. Yeah.
And I tend to always hold these people that I know barely to these ideas of who I think they are.
Because it's easier to do that, because the idea of, and I think it's one of the reasons why, you ever find that older people just kind of become racist, or they become, I think to actually go in and explore someone's story and understand who they are just takes a lot of energy, and there's only so much energy in the day.
But also, we never talk to each other.
That's true. We do never talk to each other.
It's like I'm completely willing to expand, but most of the people that in different points of my life where I think that what we're talking about sort of comes into play where, you're at a point in your life where you're defining yourself, and it's sort of like, I'm me and this is me, and oh, that's that guy, and I just talked to him for 10 minutes, so now he's that guy, and then you move on. No one's going to escape that guy status until you're like, oh shit, you're not, why didn't I talk to you earlier?
But also backstage at shows or whatever, and you see a bunch of comics, and I just wonder, I'm a lot more comfortable certainly more comfortable than I used to be, but just having these moments of abject insecurity and going, okay, if I'm insecure, are they insecure? Because they seem okay to me, and I don't have that. Whatever they have, I don't have, and I don't belong here. Like, just all of that. I think weird in your head
Well,
stuff.
yeah, but the trick about comics is most of us are insecure at least at some point, and probably more so than others. But, if you're the guy that's going to start voicing that, you're kind of, you're going against the grain of the community. It's like your job is to suck it up and act like you can do this.
But I feel like as we all get older, it just doesn't matter. It's like,
it certainly fucking doesn't.
Everyone's got fucking problems. Great, whatever. But
last night I did a benefit, and I was second up, and the Will Turn was packed, and I had that moment backstage where I'm sitting there with Tom Papa or Attell or somebody. I'm like, oh fuck, this is gonna fucking. I don't want to tank this. I'm like, why the fuck would I tank? At the stage of comedy I'm at with a full hot house, why am I even thinking that?
You wouldn't, but it's good that you think that way. It's good because it means that A, you care about what you're doing, and also it keeps you on your toes. And you know that if you have that, you won't get lazy.
I guess, but I mean, I don't need to be that crazy. At some point I should be like, I'm gonna fucking ace this. Why can't I have that once in a while?
I don't think I've ever, because I think you present yourself from a different part of your brain when you get into I'm going to ace this mode, and it just for some reason it doesn't resonate as well.
You don't get that? You don't ever feel like I'm going to ace this? You must. You have that competitive nature, and you have skills.
I don't think about it. My best shows, I don't.
No, but like you're about to go sing Whole Lotta Love at karaoke night. You're going to ace that.
No, I don't know that I'm going to ace that. I could open my mouth and it comes out wrong, or it's in the wrong key and I can't sing it, or my voice cracks, or
you've done it over and over again.
But I still always have that linger. I think that fear is a little bit of the fire behind us that drives us a little bit and makes sure that we stay relevant.
Yeah. Have you taken any bigger risks with karaoke?
No, I haven't been to karaoke in years. I haven't been in years.
But
I used to love it.
And Whole Lotta Love was your song, right?
Yeah, and then at a certain point you're like, am I really the guy that just sings the same 3 songs at every karaoke bar? Like, I really have to go around and drop my dick on the table that much for my ego? I think for me, I was karaokeing at a time when I was just quitting drinking. I was very insecure about myself.
Yeah.
And
it helped you?
I'm not as good as I did the Rock of Ages show in LA before it went to Broadway. And I could never have done the show. They asked me to do the show on Broadway, and I never could have done 8 or 9 shows a week. I can sing a couple songs, okay.
Yeah.
But I'm not good like a trained singer. I'm good for a comic.
Right.
And that's, And so at a certain point, I kind of realized, like, I'm literally just jerking myself off by going to these rooms and doing the same 3 songs, and this is dumb, and don't I get enough attention on stage as a comic, and I don't need to do this.
Well, let's go back to when you weren't a comic, and you were a math major, and somehow you ended up on MTV.
Okay. I was always... Comedy, comedy, computers, and video games were my main obsessions when I was growing up. Going back to Steve Martin, in the 70s, my parents were they fostered that. They bought me the albums, Albert Brooks,
Comedy Minus One?
Comedy Minus One, yeah. It tells you to turn the record over, all of it. Crazy Kooky Calls.
Yeah.
Loved, obviously, like Carlin and Pryor, Live on the Sunset Strip, and then like the 9th annual Young Comedy, like all that comedy boom in the 80s, I videotaped everything and watched everything. And so it was always a driving force in my life that I never related to other kids about was comedy because no one loved it as much as I did.
Right.
So then then I'm in college. I'm doing stand-up in college with a small group of people like Mike Furman and a couple other people.
Where, clubs?
Yeah, no, just like dorm shows.
Right.
It would have infuriated you. It infuriates me in retrospect. I was saying I was a comic, but really I was performing 4 times a year.
Yeah.
But we would meet once a week, help each other write.
That infuriates me.
So I was like, I'm a comic. And I'm like, oh no, I'm just doing 4 dorm shows a year. This isn't really. So then, I was a contestant on a game show called Studs. I was a contestant.
I remember that show.
A dating
kinda.
show.
Yeah.
I was a contestant on a dating show when I was in college.
Yeah.
I had a car. Some kids were going. They were auditioning for the show. I'm like, I like attention. I'll go. And so I went.
Did you get the date?
I went on. Well, you go on. 3 guys go on dates with the same girl. I think is how.
Did you fuck her?
No. Nothing happened.
Did anybody?
Far too awkward with women to, I mean, my defense mechanism was always to go into comic joke mode.
Yeah.
And college girls don't respond well to that.
Was that part of it though? That show that was getting laid? Because I mean.
Oh, they're at least making it seem like people got laid.
Oh, okay.
Like they had a plaque on the wall of a guy they called the Hat Trick, who was a guy that was the only guy that ever fucked all 3 girls. And he got them all and they called him the Hat Trick. Mm-hmm. Never would have happened with me. I was very uncomfortable in girls and always kind of went into Steve Martin. My default was wild and crazy guy mode.
You actually did the bit?
Not the bit, but that kind of like, hey.
Oh, boy.
Like the thing that he was...
You're making me uncomfortable.
The thing that he was satirizing was the character. Like it was a epic pile of fail.
Yeah.
So I go on this show, and the producer of that show, a few months later, is casting an MTV show called Trashed.
I auditioned for that.
Okay, so I hosted Trashed, and then...
Shit, what was that show about?
It was every few years MTV would try to replicate Remote Control, where they would have a quiz show with sketch elements.
Or was I on it?
I don't think you were on it.
All right, so what was the show's premise?
Teams of people would bring on personal possessions, and then they would get destroyed if they didn't answer enough questions. But, I mean, like, the entire staff were people you know. It was like Posehn, Doug Benson, Dana Gould, Odin Kirk Cross, like that group.
No, I remember. I was up for probably the hosting job, because I auditioned for a couple of those.
Yeah, and the show failed almost immediately.
Yeah.
But they kept me around, and then they placed me and singled out, and I never felt comfortable in that show because I was constantly surrounded by people that I couldn't relate to or talk to in college, like all these fraternity and sorority types. And I was in a fraternity in my freshman year, and I hated it. I was so uncomfortable. I hated being judged.
So you're telling me you were uncomfortable and singled out the whole time?
What I realized after the first season was, now
as somebody who wanted to do comedy, you knew you were being pushed into host mode.
Yes, but I didn't have enough experience to understand it yet.
Yeah.
And so the first season of the show, the set was loud, and so I was shouting into the microphone over people.
Right.
And then after I watched the first season of the show, I realized, oh, no one on the set can hear what I'm saying. These amplification devices just are for the home viewer. So I got quiet, and I just started, like, mildly insulting the people that I couldn't stand in college that were coming on the show and making, like, kind of nerd rage, backhanded comments to. And that's sort of what kept me... That was sort of my voice on the show, and that's what kept me sane on the show. And it didn't... Listen... I would be the first person to tell you I did not pop from that show. Jenny popped from that show, and Carmen popped from that show, but not the kid with the floppy hair making video game jokes and Three's Company references.
And then I always got you confused with the other kid. Who was the other guy that wore the hats and stuff? Wasn't there another personality, another young hosty personality on MTV?
Not Dan Cortez.
I can't remember. Oh, Cortez. That's what I remember. That
he was
guy.
a PA. Cortez was a PA
for Lisa Berger.
For Lisa Berger,
yeah.
And they threw him in, who's now running E.
Yeah.
And they threw Cortez in front of the camera because it was MTV. He didn't cost any money. He just was spunky, and so that's where MTV Sports came from, or whatever.
And Jon Stewart was.
You Wrote It, You Watch It.
He was on there too, right?
He was on. He hosted a show called You Wrote It, You Watch It, where people.
I remember that.
People would write in. It was right around the same time as The State. People would write in, and then I think they would make sketches out of the letters that people would write. And there's Jon Stewart in these fucking ridiculous gas station jackets, like and he had his floppy hair curtains, like we all did.
Yeah, and that was all the generation after Remote Control.
Right after Remote Control.
That was what broke this whole thing open for comics on MTV.
Exactly. Yeah, Remote Control, and then it was like Half Hour Comedy Hour, Kamikaze, like all
I did
of
both of those.
You did.
Yep.
How was because you were around, like you were doing comedy during the comedy boom and then into the 90s.
Well, I think I got my first TV gigs in 89.
Okay.
So the first time I was on TV was on Evening at the Improv in 1989 in Caroline's Comedy Hour. And then I did another set of those in 91 or something. And so I was working then. Like I started working as a comic in 88 and I started getting the first, those shows that there were the cable shows in 89, 90, 91. And I think that it was around that time, Benson was starting out.
Yep.
Hussein wasn't really yet, but I mean, Benson was one of my contemporaries and then Attell and all those guys.
Dana Gould, probably.
Dana Gould was actually, he started very young, so he was actually he was already headlining, I think, by 90, easy.
Yeah.
It got to have been.
I love watching guys like Dana or Odenkirk doing all of those 80s specials and seeing what to me as a young comedy watcher was, oh no, what they're doing is different. What they're doing is not the same as everyone else. Like that's they're saying something real that I don't know.
Well, Dana was certainly he was sort of a wonder kind, I mean, I remember he was doing stand up in Boston probably in his teens before I knew him, and he'd gone to San Francisco probably by the time he was 20 or 21 and already had an hour. I mean, he was way ahead of the curve on that and always very inspired. But I remember Benson and those guys, and I remember us all hanging around and Cross, but there was a crew certainly. But I remember the MTV half hours. They were shot in New York. It was sweaty. It was summer, and Lisa Berger was around. I remember that. It must have been 90 maybe 91.
So that's sort of right when the boom of comedy is starting to fizzle.
The first one was done. I mean, by the time I really started working, you were already going to clubs, and they were saying yeah, it's fucking over. And that's when I started in the ashes of that first comedy boom, and somehow I've managed to survive into this second one, which is happening now.
I think it's kind of good to start then, because if you can survive it, then.
But Kamikaze was weird because I remember that shoot because I had a horribly discomforting set, and the idea was it was being hosted by John Bowman's floating head.
Yeah.
There was no host.
Yeah.
There was something weird about
it. Was
the
that
whole
weird?
thing.
It was that weird vibe that MTV tried to be we
got to do it weird.
Yeah, it's got to be weird. Got to do these weird. Let's strap a camera to this dog's head and just let him sniff crotches. We'll get the shots.
I just remember I was so fucking nervous about everything. Everything. I remember backstage. I remember at Kamikaze, they wanted to shoot these interstitials or these little pickups here and there with comics. And I remember she said, act like you just got shot. And I watched Dave do his Cross, and he did the whole, he played it up. And I was just so nervous I couldn't do it as good as him that they ended up, she said, all right, bang, and I just fell down.
And there was funny.
No, it wasn't funny. She looked at me weird, and I remember it. I remember it to this day.
I used to watch you all the time on Short Attention Span Theater.
Oh, yeah. Well, that had an impact. I was angry and weird. I was much in the same position you were. I was given this show. I thought I was a rebel and an angry comic, and I had a trajectory that I was on, and I was doing the real deal, and I was broke, and I got this offer to host a clip show, and I'm like, fuck, the amount of shit I put my producers through on that show to get writers to not make me look like you. Right. I'm not just going to be a host. I need to be a comic.
Yeah.
But you did your own thing. I mean, but people liked you on that show, dude. So
I guess, but it wasn't really, it wasn't that show didn't, people seem to remember that when they talk to me about that show, they seem to remember it a lot better than I remember it going. I seem to remember people. I mean, they aired it a lot, and there was a certain demographic that watched it, but I seem to remember people saying, this fucking ridiculous show is the death of MTV. This is the worst. Like, Courtney Love accepted a humanitarian award that MTV presented her, and she was like, MTV's great except for that shitty show Singled Out. I'm like, really? Courtney Love just took a dump on us? Like,
yeah.
And so...
Are you still friends with Jenny?
I maybe once a year we'll shoot each other emails and go, how's it going? Great. Okay, thanks.
Did you ever make out with her?
I never made out with her. I've always been sort of a serial monogamist, and so I had a girlfriend the entire run.
Oh, you mean
show.
You could have made out with her, maybe?
No, I don't feel like that was ever on the table. But truth be told, and people don't believe me when I say this, but that kind of Playboy bunny style, like big boobs, like platinum blonde hair, but was never, except for Julie McCullough. Julie McCullough was like the first Playboy that I saved and pleasured myself to on a regular basis. Julie McCullough's Girl Next Door shoot from like 85 or 6 or whatever it was. But outside of Julie McCullough, who I think still is at the Playboy Mansion, and very sweet. That wasn't my type of girl, like big fake
No, me
boobs.
neither. I can't. No, it's like it always seemed a little.
So, but people are like, hey, because I get it all the time.
Fake boobs, blonde hair.
Hey, man, you must have been all up in that. And I'm like, no. And they're like, are you gay? And I'm like, because I didn't fuck the right girl. I would have been all over that. I'm like, I bet you wouldn't have.
But yeah, but also it's like I worked with her. She was my co-host.
Yeah, people just assume that if you work with people, you're gonna throw your cock in them. And it's really.
That's why I'm grateful.
Hey, did you fuck Ed Asner?
Yeah,
did you fuck Ed Asner?
I did.
You guys worked together. You must have fucked Ed Asner.
Yeah, it was weird. But I figured out of respect for him, if this is what he needed to do. He's an old man.
Grant!
Yeah. But all right, so then so you do that, and then weren't you on a boat too? Was there a boat show?
Boat date. Shipmates was that was really the beginning of the hard downward spiral. Was the
beginning of the bottom.
The beginning of the bottom, yeah. So MTV finished in like '98 maybe, and I worked in radio for a while and did a bunch of failed pilots that are just...
You're almost on Ryan Seacrest's trajectory.
Yes.
I sometimes I say that Chris Hardwick's the nerd Ryan Seacrest.
I sort of feel like that sometimes, just because I tweeted that once.
You did?
I said Seacrest and I have very similar careers, except he has more money and less nerds. So I was going to start calling myself C++ Crest, which is a programming language, and he tweeted back to me like, "I'll parse code any day with you, bro." And I'm like, really?
Oh, yeah.
So it was very sweet.
Did you hang out?
Did not hang out. But I just in terms of, I mean, I think he's done an amazing thing. He's a fucking industry, that guy. It's insane.
And you have no idea who he is. That's the
I don't know who he really is.
Yeah, that's one of those classic sort of...
But I think you see a lot of it.
The Hicksian pull back the face.
No, but you see it in the fact that you can't make $100 million a year and not be an obsessive fiend.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Yeah.
You have to have a certain gene. I think the roadmap is in all of the production deals and the 9 shows and the doing the radio and not stopping for a minute. I mean, I am that way, and I'm sure that it's because, like I said to you when I got here, you said, "How you doing?" I go, "I'm really busy, but I love it that way because I hate being alone with my thoughts." I mean, clearly I'm a workaholic because I'm probably running from something. And, before it was booze, and now I can control my career, and I'm going to at least feel like I'm steering something.
Well, okay. So like if you're running from something, in those moments where I see it sometimes when I talk to you, that, your eyes just sort of go distant. And then I'm like, what's going on now?
I'm rebooting.
Yeah.
Control Alt Delete.
But is it like when you have those moments, I mean, what do you feel? Sadness or anger or fucking lost?
No, it's just 4 other things that I need to remember to do that I know I'm going to forget because I didn't write them down.
But beyond that. But I mean, like, if you feel like you're running from something, what is it?
I don't know. I mean, part of it is, and maybe you felt this too, as you start to kind of get into your late 30s, you start to really, like, it's sort of what you said earlier. I'm not afraid of death. What I'm afraid of is dread. it's a dreaded moment of death, or it's a, you know, like, more people are afraid of dying in an airplane crash, but more people will die from heart disease. Like, it doesn't stop people from shoving cheeseburgers in their mouth, because if you die of a heart attack, you just fucking drop dead.
Yeah, but I have dread. I mean, dread is crippling.
Like, dread is the major component of anxiety. You become afraid of being afraid.
Right.
And so, you know, there's a component of that. There's a component of being afraid of my own fear.
Do you panic when you're left with too much time?
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I teeter on hypochondria a little bit, and you know,
I used to be a bad
what was pointed out to me by my girlfriend Janet is, she said, it only happens when you're home for a few days and you don't have anything to do, which is rare.
But it also happens because you don't feel okay.
You don't feel okay.
And you want somebody to make it better. I mean, I have found that when you're panicking or anxious or having hypochondria, you know, basically you just want someone to say, it's okay.
Yes.
You're going to be okay. And then you go, fuck you, you don't know, it's just cancer. But, you know, that's a whole other thing. That's called a marriage.
And well done. But part of the obsessive mind, I think, is when, you know, if you're a workaholic or an alcoholic or whatever your holicism is, you're spending so much time in the external world, and then when you take a break from that, your brain is still on auto drive, and so it literally just turns on itself and begins to cannibalize itself. Right. And I think that's a lot of that mechanism too.
Then you get the,
I gotta fix something. I gotta fix something. Oh, I gotta fix me. Right. Oh, I'm broken. Oh my, that doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
That's probably that's probably a thing. What is that? MS? You know, like, it's just a fucking.
Yeah, I got something in my Achilles tendon right now.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't know what it is.
That's not. That's.
Have you ever hurt your Achilles tendon?
No, but I've had I've had back issues, and so that'll compress an artery, and then so your leg feels a little numb, and you're like, well, that's either Parkinson's or MS or some neurological problem.
Right. But so you get that thing where you're like, I'm not cutting it.
I'm not cutting it. I'm not okay. Something's wrong. Ugh. And it had to be pointed out to me that is your anxiety manifesting itself, because you can't be alone for a couple days without, like, I gotta be in work mode. But I do genuinely love to work. Everything that we do is just like the chess game. Like, I just.
No, I do too, but don't you ever get that thing where it's sort of like, when's the other shoe gonna drop?
Sometimes, but I'm a lot better with that. Now.
Who's your therapist?
She's good.
She must be.
She's good. A lot of it is emotional compartmentalizing thing. Emotionally compartmentalizing.
Have you been able to trace that back to being an only child, or your parents divorced, or anything like that?
Maybe.
I mean, just the sort of weird abandonment, or the weird kind of like.
I mean, I'm sure there's a million things, you know, and like like for a period of time, I didn't talk to my dad, and, you know, like my dad had, you know, like.
Are you able to let somebody make you feel better?
Yes, absolutely. Because, you know, a lot of it was, you know, my mom was very overprotective, and so I'm sure there's, you know, like, if someone just says, like you said, like, someone just goes, everything's okay, and you're like, all right, that's all I needed.
Thank you. I'm going back out to the playground.
Literally, yeah, exactly. Literally, it's just like when a kid falls down, if you laugh at them, he's like, oh, everything's okay, I'll go back and play.
Let's talk about this bottom that happened on a ship.
Oh, okay, great. Shipmates, so I didn't work for a few years.
But were you freaking out about work, or were you like, did you have that moment where you're like, I'm not doing what I want to do?
I was drinking so fucking much, I wasn't even thinking about it. And then so Shipmates comes along, everyone's trying to remake Blind Date, because Blind Date was doing very well.
Yeah.
And so this was Blind Date on a cruise ship.
Yeah.
And I turned it down 6 times, because I said the same thing you said about Short Attention Span Theater. Like, I'm not going to be a fucking dating show host again. Yeah. I will look.
Were you doing stand-up yet?
Yes, I started doing stand-up full-time in 98. So I was doing stand-up.
I remember when you started.
Yeah.
That was like 92?
Well, that was the first. I think that was in college when I was toying around with it. Then I didn't really do it again until 98.
Like 90. Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what about 95? When did you start coming around Luna? You were already done Singled Out.
Oh, Luna was 2001.
It was?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Luna was 2001, because that was around the time I was going out to do. It's 2000, 2001. That was around the time.
That's like right when I was leaving. Yeah.
Yeah, right about that time. And then so I'm there. I go to do. I finally accept the offer because it was so much money. I just couldn't turn it down anymore, and I had no money, so I took it. And I said, I'll do it, but you have to let me make the nerdiest jokes I can make. And they go, you can say whatever you want. So, you know, I'm making fucking Harry Potter jokes on a dating show in 2001, and no one said anything, and so it became fun. Then
was the show popular?
In some markets and with syndicated television, if it gets a good time slot on a channel people have heard of, they'll watch it.
Yeah.
And if not, they won't.
Right.
But overall, it was popular-ish, not super popular. And then 9/11 happened, and I was in New York for that, and then it just this crazy spiral, and then it was, just 2 straight years of the drinking got really bad because I was so fucking scared and just so afraid for my life and my career and all this craziness. So
you made 9/11 about you.
Well, of course, we all, a lot of us did.
Yeah.
Oh, this is probably because
Yeah. And also, this means that I'm not going to be able to. Yeah. It's
like your dad's joke about it's my stepmom had cancer. I have the worst luck.
Yeah. So, I wish it was a joke. It's only a joke the way I say it.
We make it about ourselves.
Yeah.
And so I had never really thought about my career long term. I was very much like job to job.
Yeah.
And then I quit drinking and realized, I might have some control over this.
You have free will.
I'm gonna actually go out of my way to create the career that I want rather than waiting for something to come along. And so that's when everything changed.
So you had the chops, you had some comedy chops, you had
bit.
hosting chops, and you said, I'm going to be true to myself and just build my own thing.
But not like you guys. Like I still, for me, the first 5 years of comedy was basically doing comedy mostly in LA and New York, which, if you're doing comedy mostly in LA, not to insult LA, but you're not really, really doing comedy to like not real stand up.
Right.
You're performing for other performers.
Yeah,
it's people who it's a little more inside. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't until I started going on the road that I realized, like, none of these jokes work. Most people don't give a fuck about how auditions work.
But you're pretty persistent up there. I mean, like,
I think that's a compliment.
No, it is. I mean, you step into long stuff. You've got a certain pace. You don't really buckle. You keep plowing along. You're not,
Thank you, quote unquote.
No. I
hear what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
I have walked away from watching you work, saying that's a good bit. That might be as close to a compliment as I can.
I will accept your compliment.
Is that the first time you said that?
No. It's a word I started thinking of when I would start going on the road and people didn't know who I was, and there were maybe 4 nerds in the audience, and someone would come up after a show and go, "Listen, I don't know what everyone else was thinking about, but I thought you were great."
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, that's a compliment.
Hey, you're really likable.
Yeah.
You're a good guy.
You're so brave to get up there the way you do.
You're good. You're getting laughs.
You have way more courage than I do.
Oh, come on.
But watching guys like you and guys like Louis talk about real things and actually talk about yourselves. That was very hard to do because I'm actually kind of a private person. And so it was and also it doesn't, did you see the being funny, the thing with Ricky Gervais and Louis and Seinfeld okay. So it was fascinating because Ricky Gervais, who is, he's a comedic actor, has now been doing stand-up for the last few years, still has, because he's a young comic, still has a lot of these weird emotional trappings that you have when you first start doing stand-up. Like, I can't do the same jokes more than once. I have to, comedy is doing a thing. It's not just getting up talking. That's too easy. Why would I just get up and talk? It has to be a bit. It has to be a thing.
Yeah.
And so it took me years to start to, even just now, settling into, no, you can just talk about yourself and you can derive comedy from that. It doesn't have to be, and then I need a tag, and then that's got to have an old twisty part.
Yeah, no, it doesn't have to be that, but sometimes you realize you're doing that anyways.
Yeah.
That's innately, after you do comedy a while, you realize that's sort of a unique joke for me because it is a twist. And then, I think you probably think in tags more than you think.
Maybe, but I always, I look at guys like, you or Lewis Black or Patton or Paul F. Tompkins and I just think, you guys have it down to the point where you can, and I don't mean to take any of the sexy art out of it, but you're sort of, it's become a streamlined machine, and I can throw any topic at you and it's going to come out as you in a relatively well-formed comedy thought because your machine is greased and you know who you are.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
But we're forced to. Don't you feel like more than any profession, you're sort of forced to deal with who you are because you do comedy?
Well, I think that for me, I'm in a zone where I've never been before. I'm very much comfortable in my skin, on stage and even a little more off, and that's never happened before. So I've found a little leeway to have a better time than I used to.
You do appreciate it.
Yeah, I never used to because I was so full of panic and dread and anger that like I just was like, I just got to get to this and get to that but now like I actually like the audience more, even if they're shitty. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I can, you know, like I was in Canada and I had the late shows were unmanageable. Almost. But it was like, I know how to do this. You know, like, it's fine. I can deal with that guy. I can deal with this. And all of a sudden, it's like, I earned the right to have a good time, even if I'm not doing it. So it's different.
What's your take on Canada for comedy?
I think they're very polite audiences, and sometimes, you know, they're great audiences. And I found that even when they got drunk and a little out of control, it seemed cultural and not aggravated. You know what I mean? Like they definitely did not police the room as well as they should. But there's a feeling up there. It's like, yeah, this is how it is. You know, second show Friday, man. I'm like, yeah, but I mean, that guy, you know, he showed his ass. He should have been taken out of the room.
Which is kind of funny because, you know, where you're at, where people are going out of their way to see you.
A few. It's still not a whole club's worth. So,
no,
I mean,
really? Come on, seriously?
No. Not in Canada. I mean, I feel,
okay.
You know, there are certain cities, but I mean, I feel enough support now to where, I mean, I still do comedy clubs. So I don't, you know, I'm not doing rock clubs where it's only going to be my people. Mm-hmm. So I like the challenge of performing for people that don't know me at all, which there are plenty.
Yeah.
So now I literally, as part of my act, say like, look, I got a lot of people here who know who I am very well. And then I got you people that have never fucking seen me before in my life. So we're going to try to bridge this gap. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of exciting, I think, for both parties to have that experience. So
what is it you look for when you're watching a comic and you go, that guy?
I just want to see his vulnerability.
Interesting.
You know, if I can't feel his personness, like even if they're avoiding it, there's a vulnerability up there that I sense immediately.
And you think that does that make it more real for you, or just you just connect with?
Well, it just means they're taking a risk, other than wondering whether or not they're going to get a laugh.
I never thought of it that way. God damn it, that's such a great way to think about it. Because you know, so much of the way that I used to write and still write to some extent is just about comedy based, and not like, no, I want to tell you who I am, and here's a thing that I feel, and like I was never.
But even like
but
even if it's not that, you can sense that, like, you know, this guy's, you know, he can't be doing anything else. you know what I mean? There's nothing else this guy can be doing. I mean, you know, it's all in for this guy. You see it less now, you know, because there's a lot of people, you know, anyone can write a joke, and really, sadly, a lot of people can tell them fairly well on stage, the jokes they wrote. Yeah. But until they start, you know, till that isn't just protecting against engaging, it could be anybody.
That's really fascinating. And I totally get, especially now, why you would see my stuff and then go, okay, I sort of, you know, like, because I was never vulnerable on stage because I hated being vulnerable. You know,
well, are you ever vulnerable off stage? When somebody's not attacking you?
Sure. Oh my God, the comment threads.
Right. No, but I think that speaks to something. I mean, like you said, you're a private person.
Sure.
And even the experiences that one chooses to share up there, I mean, you're only going to do as much as you can handle.
Yeah.
It takes, sometimes I share things, it's pretty insane that I'm sharing them, and they're not even funny, and people are like, I don't know why he's telling us this.
Yeah.
And in my mind, it's like, well, it's got to be funny because you're shocked, or you're having an experience, right? What are you going to do with my feelings? You know, and I don't know that that's always the best form of entertainment.
I tell you, I saw you at the Laugh Factory once, and it was fucking awesome because
it's rare that I go there.
I know. Well, but to see, you know, the type of comic that tends to flourish there is more of a, hey, everybody's like, hey, remember what it was like to have a sandwich when you were a kid?
Yeah,
and they just remind people that things existed,
sure.
And people equate that with like,
sure.
Oh, safety! I recognize the thing. That's funny.
Identification.
Like, no, you just feel safe.
Yeah.
And then to watch you just get up and sit on a stool and start talking about the bipolar coaster and then your dad and all these real emotional things and it went over well, and I was like, holy shit! Like that was Well, and the next comic after you again was just like taking shits, people.
Well, but see, I knew that too, and I knew, like, you know, I sacrificed this compulsion to kill with this compulsion to reveal myself. You know, so like learning how to exist in that territory on stage, that took a long time.
Yeah.
But, you know, you're doing good.
Everything's great. I'm very happy with the way everything's going.
Well, so let's briefly and as a way to bring it around. I mean, so you majored in philosophy?
Yes, I majored in philosophy.
So what did you take away from that experience?
I took away from the experience in a nutshell that philosophy, I feel like innately can't really be a major in college because so much of it is subjective. I think so much of the idea of philosophy and you know, like meta ideas, so much of it is subjective. You know, I write a paper about, you know, what I thought, you know, could be the idea of, you know, existence blinking, like when you blink your eyes, everything around you goes away, you know, like this sort of solipsistic idea that everything is an extension of your own experiences
Perception.
Or whatever. And so I would write a paper and they would grade it and I'd go, well, this is my opinion. How can you grade my opinion? I'm not spitting facts back at you. And so I feel like philosophy like turned on itself in a weird sort of way. I was like, well, if nothing really has any innate value, why am I in school? And why am I taking classes? And why can't I just go read books somewhere else? And so, you know, that was kind of the experience I took away from it.
But also, you didn't want to get involved. I mean, because philosophy as an academic pursuit remains an academic pursuit.
Exactly. What do you do with it?
And you're just adding to, you're completing, it's an ongoing equation based on the equations of other philosophers that came before you.
The thing that drove me to it was Steve Martin. Was like, oh, Steve Martin was a philosophy major, and I always remember he said it screws up your thinking just enough for comedy. And I was like, yes, okay, that's what I want. That's what I want. I became a philosophy major because of Steve Martin and comedy.
Did it get you that?
I don't know. Because you know, the philosophy groupies were another group that I didn't relate to either. Just these like fat sweaty dudes in trench coats in the summer smoking cigarettes outside, being like, how do I know a table's the same table that you see? And I'm like, because at a certain point you just have to agree on something. You just can't we can't stand here and debate this, that we see the same orange forever.
Yeah.
So
that's funny.
So I found it to be kind of an exercise in futility. At a certain point, you just kind of have to go, this is what it is.
Right.
And this is what I'm experiencing now. So the end.
Well, that sounds like it did help your comedy.
I guess.
Thanks. Good talking to you, Chris.
Thanks, Marc Maron.
All right, that's it. That was me and Chris. I think it went well. Remember, if you want to watch Chris's Nerdist TV special, it's on BBC America this Saturday, September 24th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Listen to WTF on Monday for that insane lineup. Ira Glass, Morgan Spurlock, Elna Baker, Joe Mandy, Wayne Kostenbaum, Nick DiPaolo, Artie Lang, Nick Griffin. Oh, my God. Go to the website, WTFpod.com. Get all your WTF Pod needs met. Got a lot of great merch, a lot of new shirts, new posters. Going to have some buttons up there soon. Get on that mailing list. You can also buy my CD. That would be nice. It's still out there. People are enjoying it. Get that at iTunes. Or if you go get it at the merch section on WTFpod.com, I'll sign it for you. And, of course, the app. Get the app. Get the app. I'll be in Louisville, Kentucky, at the Improv tonight through Sunday. I just want to get that out of the way. Bit of a plug fest today.